Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of our virtual live roadshows. And today we have Kuya Silver, and with us here is David Stein, the CEO. Hey, good morning to Canada. How are you doing?
Good morning, Johan. I'm doing well, thanks.
Perfect. Good to see you and in good shape. That's important in those times. Before we start, just let me do some remarks here also on the legal side. Of course, most of you know me. My name is Jochen Steiger. I'm the founder and CEO of Swiss Resource Capital and also the founder and chief editor of Commodity.TV and Rohstoff-TV. And we are very happy to do this roadshow here today with all of you. And yeah, of course, we are fully complying to the data security law, to the European data security law, but also to Switzerland and Great Britain. So we make sure that nobody can see each other, nor any names or emails. It would be great after David's presentation, which will last approximately 20-25 minutes, to have a lively Q&A discussion. And I really urge you and advise you to use the chat function to type your questions in. You can do it in English, in German, that would be great. And I will moderate this afterwards to make sure that we have a very nice Q&A and that we can roast a little bit David here with some good and maybe some tough questions. I'm not sure if it's necessary. Yeah. Kuya Silver, great company. They will go in production. Definitely. The setup is here for next year. I think Q1, latest Q2 is the setup here. As you know, we are always on the conservative side. And then there will be a nice and one of the few silver producers in Peru. And we really look forward to that because silver is in high demand. Silver is in a heavy deficit. And yeah, we are very, very bullish for silver, also for gold for sure. But for silver, we are even more bullish because we see what's going on in the solar industry and also with the e-mobility. And I think Kuya Silver can really benefit out of this. So I see investors checking in here. That is fantastic. Let me set up the presentation. And I would say, David, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. I pleased to be back here and giving you an overview on Kuya. Or maybe it's an update if you've heard us before. We trade in Canada, in the U.S., and in Germany, and we've got an exciting story. Let me just jump right in. We now have 2 pages of disclosures for you to enjoy and read on your own time. One is relating to forward-looking statements. The other one on the technical disclosures. And then let's just start here. And so we've got our flagship asset is the Bethania silver mine in Peru. It's a recently passed producer that's currently on care and maintenance. And when we decided to buy this back in 2017, we saw the opportunity to essentially expand and optimize the mine. The optimization is really the installation of a new plant. This mine was always toll milling, which was paying, a high cost to truck the ore around and have it processed. But, even they were actually, up until a few years before they closed, they actually were making money doing that because the grade is so high here. It can be very forgiving when it comes to the mining. So we saw a great opportunity here to, just with relatively minimal capital, do an expansion, at our own mill so we can basically reduce the costs and control the production better, and then restart the whole operation. And so we're in the process of doing that now, and we've made a number of strides along that way, and then which I'll talk about in a minute, and then at the same time, we do have a longer term view of our company as a silver miner, as a consolidator. We took our first step in that direction when we acquired the Kerr project and the Silver Kings project in Ontario, Canada earlier this year. So we have that as well that we're working on. It's a few years behind Bethania in terms of its level of development, but we're very excited about that as our second project as well. So I'll talk about both. As well as the business model. Just here's our current shares outstanding. We did we are doing a financing that's going to close next week. So we will add another about 5 million shares to this number. So we'll have about 45 million shares outstanding by next week. And, so the shareholders will change a little bit. Some of our large shareholders invested more in this past deal, so they'll maintain or increase their position, but otherwise it will be pretty similar. All right, I'm going to spend a couple minutes talking about the business model and the long term here, more than I normally do, just because, as you guys probably know or have followed, there's been a lot of, I guess, an elevation of the perceived political risk in Peru, which is fair. Recently, our stock price has been hit hard by that. And so I really want to emphasize what our long-term plan is in an effort to really cultivate long-term shareholders that are going to be with us for many years. If you want to trade around our stock because we've got drill results coming or whatever, absolutely, we're happy to do that as well. But really, my job as the CEO at this point in time, now that we're almost a year, from being public, is to start cultivating bigger, longer-term investors who can be with us for many years and ride out all these sort of ups and downs that we may have with things like the politics. So, first of all, we see an exceptional opportunity here because silver miners, and I don't mean exploration companies, I mean companies that actually produce silver, are extremely rare. There's only a handful of them, maybe 10 or 15 in the entire world that are public. And, and then a lot of them become gold miners as well, because of, they buy gold mines or they develop, they end up developing gold mines. So if you are really bullish on silver, and I don't think we've really seen the generalists come into the silver market in any big way yet, they're going to buy silver miners. They don't understand drill results and 200 grams of this and 1,000 grams of that. They will understand production, cash flow, EBITDA, and we will have that once we get into production. So we want to join that group as quickly as possible. That's what we are focused on doing as Kuya. And when we do that, we're very confident we'll get a big uptick in our valuation. How much that will depend. It's very, very dispersed, the valuations of the silver companies. You've got some that are extraordinarily expensive and others that are not so expensive. Obviously, we want to be an expensive one, but anyway, that's really our goal as a company. And how we're going to do it, is building through production and acquisition. The production obviously gives you the cash flow. Investors like that. Because it means there's less risk for dilution. That's the biggest risk of a mining company is, we have to continue to go to the market and raise money all the time. As soon as you go into production, though, and you start making money, then now you have a lot more flexibility. Doesn't mean you'll never do a financing again, but it does mean that you don't need to, or you may not need to. So when we look at the biggest, most successful silver miners in the last 20, 30 years, companies like First Majestic, companies like Pan American, we're really following the same model. Those guys had their start with, these small high-grade mines in Peru or Mexico, and, we're following in those footsteps. So really, here's the business model in a nutshell. Identify, high-grade mine. If you can buy it privately, even better, because it's going to be cheaper, than buying a spin off of a public company. And that's what we were able to do. When you are able to bring, that better access to capital from the stock market to these projects, it allows you to expand production. It allows you to reduce costs and drill out more resources. And that's, again, what we're doing with Bethania. And, even Kerr as well, I could argue. And then, you benefit from byproducts. Most silver miners do. But it's important we want to stay, mostly silver. And we're able to do that with our projects that we have right now. So we'll, be a true silver mining company. Not a sometimes gold, sometimes silver, or sometimes zinc, sometimes gold, which those are out there. And we will be lower risk because Geologically, these projects are lower risk. You don't have to put as much money into them. Low capex. That is, to me, the biggest risk in the mining industry is always financing risk. So we manage that by having smaller projects that just produce a lot of profit instead of a lot of capex. All right, so here's where here's where Bethania is, right here, 170 kilometers away from Lima. Got roads there, big city here, Huancayo. It's a great location. In terms of what we're working on right now, this would, I guess, map out the next 12 months. We call this our dual track value creation. Most silver juniors only have exploration going on. We have 2 tracks. We are adding value through development and exploration. We are basically in the latter phases of basically almost finished our phase 1 drill program on Bethania right now, and also almost finished our drill program at Kerr. So we'll be putting check marks here very shortly, and probably in the next month, once we release all the results. And then we've got good exploration plans. I would say we're going to be very focused a bit on exploration on the latter half of the year with the money that we just raised. And then on the development side, working on detailed engineering, finishing up that's something we're expecting to finish soon. That will result in our construction permits, the last kind of bigger permit we need. And then we can start planned construction. So we're looking to do that in the second half of the year. Nothing's going on right now permitting wise with Peru, given the election, change of government and stuff like that. So I think we just have to essentially accept that the next 2 months, nothing is going to happen. But after that, we expect things to be business as usual. So, the big benefit by building our own plant is well, we can increase production and we can save costs. So we were able, just to remind you, and it was on the third slide as well, or the fourth slide, we did complete an EIA, and we got our EIA for a 350 ton per day plant approved last year. So that is a major permit that is out of the way for Kuya. So by building that relatively small plant, we can do it really quickly construct it within several months, get it online. We'll get paid a lot more for our concentrate. And we also, won't be paying toll milling fees anymore. We won't be doing any long haul trucking of our ore, because we're processing right at site. So it's a big factor to reduce our costs. And it really makes this project a very high IRR project and a quick payback on our capex. Here's our kind of a long section of one of the 6 veins that we have been mined historically, and there's still, we plan to still mine them. We'll go back in and start mining them again. So this is Veta Victoria. As I said, there's 6 veins that were mined up until 2016, known about. They're all open at depth and along strike. So the strike length would be this way into the side of the mountain, and the depth is down this way where these blocks are. We actually can drive in at the 670 level. So anything from here and above, we don't need any ramps. The 640 level is our first level, essentially below surface, where we have a ramp, and that was already developed by the previous owners. So we will continue developing there when we get back into the mine, later this year. And that's where a lot of our production will come from in the beginning, from those 2 levels, the 670 and the 640 level, at least initially. Now, the bigger picture on our property is we've got huge upside just right by where the mine is. We don't have to go very far. Here's where the mine is right now. These horizontal lines are basically 6 kilometers of development at various levels, going down to the 640 level. You can see that we've got some stars, just some of the samples that have been taken at the bottom levels of the mine. This is very kind of typical high-grade stuff that we see in a vein system at Bethania. And then and everything is open at depth. And we've been doing some drill holes at depth, and we'll be reporting those soon. That will, hopefully give us a few stars a little deeper than this. But it is open at depth, and we are very confident that we can double or triple this at depth based on, similar deposits in Peru and Mexico. We're still very, very shallow here. We like to say scratching the surface. Now, over here, we did some work earlier in 2021, earlier this year, and around this historical working, which is not part of our historical resource. Even the previous owners were not mining here, but it is known about. It's on our maps. You can see the adit. And what we found was that there's a whole bunch of other veins here. And so we started mapping those and taking samples, and we got some spectacular results that frankly were, even above our expectations, up to 90 ounces per ton in one sample from this Santa Elena vein, which is 100 or 110 equivalent, because there's actually very high gold there as well. So if I go to the next slide, you can see on a map where this is all the new stuff that we've been finding at surface. This is the Santa Elena vein. It's actually the furthest east vein that we have. That we've taken samples from, I should say. We have more. We just haven't mapped them and taken samples yet. And this is about 500 meters away from the end of the underground workings over here, which is about 500 meters away from the adit, which is right here. So essentially, if you go here 500 meters, here another 500 meters, you've doubled the strike length of the Bethania vein system. Now we just need to fill in all the space in between, but we're very confident that we'll be able to do that. And in that case, we've got a lot of potential along strike here. We've got a lot of potential at depth with all these veins. They're open at depth. So, for us we think we can build a really big resource here but focusing on high grade silver mineralization over the next few years. One more thing, we just recently announced that we acquired a property that is very similar to Bethania, but earlier stage. So this is called Carmelita. It's 3 kilometers away, essentially across a valley. And there's another hill that pops out of the valley, just like Bethania. And this was being artisanally mined, so very small scale. But you can see these dark spots here. These were adits. So we've got 2 adits in Esperanza and 1 in Victoria and 1 in this Veta Pozo. So that's where these guys were mining. We took samples at surface. We got, I think, up to 11 grams per ton on Veta Victoria, where we mapped it at surface. 11 ounces per ton silver, which is actually very similar to what we have at 15 ounces per ton. Which is what we have at Bethania. And so it's right there, 15 ounces per ton. And so we are very excited to come here and start doing some, surface work, going underground and sampling underground as well. And we will be doing that in the second half of the year. We think this is almost like a duplicate or an analog to Bethania. Just the vein system at surface that we can map is about 1 kilometer at least. We've got a kilometer of veins at Bethania, as I just showed you. And it's a swarm of veins that are all structurally controlled by the same system and seem to have more or less the same type of ore in them, or the same type of minerals, silver with some lead, zinc, maybe a bit of copper and gold as well. So that's what we've got there. And we're very excited. We just acquired that. That's brand new. So a big, opportunity for us. All right, we're back on site with our local community, the Proche community, very small, very good. They've been very good partners for us. And we've been working with them on our drill program that just finished the drilling part of it. So we're just finishing the logging and assaying now. They've been involved in that. We obviously had to make some adjustments with the COVID protocols. Peru's hit very badly with COVID, but we were able to manage and get the drill program done, and very good accomplishment for our team. All right, lastly, let's just quickly talk about our project in Ontario, Canada. So we acquired this recently in March from First Cobalt, and we did it. We call it the Silver Kings project. It's really split into 2 parts. The red area is the 100%, so no obligations. And then the orange we did as a joint venture. So that we have a joint venture, we have to earn and spend money over the next 3 years or so, 3.5 years. With the Kerr project, the reason why we kind of cherry picked that out of the package was because it's the most advanced. It's where First Cobalt did the vast majority of their drilling. So we've got really good data there. It's where there's most of the historical silver production in this whole area that First Cobalt had. So we see the opportunity here to kind of do what we've been doing at Bethania, and bring it up to modern day understanding, and see what we can do in terms of getting a mine going here in the next few years. And whereas the orange area is grassroots exploration, it's very, very exciting stuff, but it's longer term. So now zooming in on the Kerr area, this is all the taken from our 3D model. The pink is the underground workings. They are mostly, like probably 90% of the underground workings are in the upper 100 meters from surface. So very little work was ever done below 100 meters here. And there's really no reason why we can't extend these veins at depth. In fact, First Cobalt did that with, in particular, this 93, where they intersected some really good grade at about 125, 150 meters below surface, not near any underground workings. So that's a brand new discovery. And we're following up on that right now with our current drill program and among other targets. But that is one target we're very excited about. And we see a lot of potential here to basically find more pockets of mineralization veins that were not mined or were too low grade at the time, but today would make sense to mine. And really, we're looking at turning this into a new silver mine. All right, I won't spend any time on our management right now. You can read this on yourself and stay tuned because we're adding to our management team, in the coming months. And that is it.
Fantastic. Super, David. Thank you very much. Just let me close this here. So we are back. Great. All right. I saw already some questions, and several questions are, of course, before we start with the rest here, on the political situation in Peru. So how do you see it? Have you been affected? Is Peru going now the socialist way or nationalization? What do you think? What's going on?
So I deliberately left that for the Q&A. So let's talk about that. Look, it looks like they're still counting the votes, but it looks like Pedro Castillo is going to win as the president. His party, the party that he comes from, would be a very left leaning, even socialist kind of party. So look, that will make an impact, I think, in the politics. However, I think what a lot of people assume is just because a guy is elected president, that he can do whatever he wants, almost like a dictator. And that is not the way Peru works. It's a republic. And the president doesn't have absolute power. He has to work with the Congress, much like, Joe Biden does in the United States. So the Congress is actually heavily split. Pedro Castillo's party has a minority in that, well below half the seats. So he will have to work with other parties in order to pass any legislation, ultimately. So I think the stuff that he was campaigning on, although some of it is very kind of flashy and would get, people excited if you're very poor and you want mines and stuff to be given to you, that's not the reality of how the political system works there. So, could they raise taxes? I think so. Yeah, they could probably get a few parties, left or center wing parties to go with them on that, on some kind of tax reform. But in terms of nationalization or anything that would really dramatically affect the mining industry, I don't see it.
Mm-hmm. So you also don't see them, let's say, to tax you guys to death? Because sometimes it's a big mistake what politicians are doing.
Yeah. Look, I think, the reality is Peru is already they're not a low tax jurisdiction at all. They're not high either. They're probably average. But when they talk about when they talk about taxes, or maybe it will come through increasing basically the the sort of the perks to the workers in terms of, health or pension or whatever. There's sort of different ways to do that. And so what I would say is, that could go up, that could go up in the coming years. But 5 years from now, it could be another government could go back down again, we're planning on being there for the long term. I'm not, that worried about it in the long term. I think we have a really good team there. We're set up to take advantage of this, frankly. There's going to be guys who will get scared out of Peru, and maybe we'll be able to buy stuff cheaply again, like we did back in 2017. Because right now it's people want a lot of money for silver projects, so we could look at it as a blessing in that sense.
Absolutely. No, and I like the contrarian thinking, because when the crowd is, how can I say that, cautious, or is like we are so sorry, no, then you should use the opportunity, like Warren Buffett is doing it, to buy the stuff cheap, right? You don't want to pay too much. So I think that's a good idea.
Let me say something about that, Johan, because, my background, I didn't talk about it, but I most of my career, I've been a buy side or sell side, essentially analyst or investment advisor, investor myself. And I've seen these developing countries, almost all of them, go through these cycles, right? Mm-hmm. So right now, people are loving Mexico. So you don't get a discount if you got a project in Mexico. Morocco, people are loving, etc. But even and obviously we're getting penalized heavily right now being in Peru. But again, in a few years that will change. Bolivia is a great example. 10 years ago, no one would touch Bolivia. Now you got New Pacific has $1 billion market cap on a very long range project. So obviously people are okay with Bolivia now.
Absolutely.
It happens, right?
Yeah, and also I think it's one thing is also for sure, if you are a socialist, a Democrat, or Republican, finally you need money.
Yeah.
And money means that you have a functioning economy, and the mining business is the most important business in Peru altogether. And so I think you are still in the right place. You are in a 500-year-old mining state, right? And so that is fine. So that leads also to the question here from an investor. So can I still hold or buy into Kuya so everything is fine? And that leads also to another question. How is the financing going?
The financing is fine. We closed it within hours, or we closed the book within hours of announcing it on the 25th, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then it just takes a couple weeks to, for the lawyers to do their thing, and the brokers, and collect the sub agreements and all that kind of stuff. So we're expecting to close it very shortly, and stay tuned. It's just one of those things. I wish we can't really say anything until it closes, but
of course,
I'm not.
But you are happy.
I'm not worried about it.
You are happy.
Yeah, happy. That's very happy.
Yeah. So you are not repricing that, because that's also a question from a shareholder in Zurich.
No, I think that's a misconception. I think that if the shares, because we've heard this from other investors too. If the shares trade down, that all of a sudden, it's like an option that, if the stock goes up, you get the low price, but if the stock goes down, you get to reprice it down. That's not the way, financings work. Exactly. And the vast majority of this financing was placed with institutional investors, and they're good for their money, basically. So that's just sort of it's a misconception. Unfortunately, it hurts us now, because people assume that the deal isn't going well, but there's really nothing we can say until it closes, right?
Of course, yeah. So I really understand that fully. And if I look at your share registry, especially with the institutions and all those kind of things, I'm absolutely not worried about this. Then before we start with the project, there is a question here from a Swiss shareholder. Why do some of the silver producers pivot to gold recently, like First Majestic, and what's Kuya's take on this?
Great question. Look, it's very difficult for me to speak to the other producers. The First Majestic one, I have to admit, I'm quite surprised about that. I think if you go back before, let's exclude the First Majestic deal for a second and go back to the ones that happened before that. Up until 2018, 2019, silver was not a great place to be, or even 2020. The price, I think in 2020, sure I understand. Oops, my watch did something. In 2020, the price got down to, I think, $14-15 at one point, an ounce. So I think back then, it was very tempting when a banker walks into your office and go, "Hey, we got this, you're trading at 1 times NAV, and we have this gold miner gold developer that's trading at 0.3 times NAV. Let's do a deal. It's going to be accretive." And it's very tempting to do that, especially when the silver price is lagging behind the gold price. That's not the case anymore. So I'm not sure if we'll see those deals happen as much anymore. But look, I think in general, and I'm going to try not to do this as a CEO of Kuya, but as you get bigger, you tend to get a bit lazier in terms of your corporate development. You're looking at projects, and I think the real gems out there are going to be private, unlisted companies and projects, or things that have no value to their seller, like the Kerr project. But it's sort of what tends to happen is you end up getting other companies, whole companies will be sold, and then you've got to pay a much higher price. You got to pay all the extra fees and severance and all that kind of stuff. So if you can just buy assets directly, you're going to get a much better deal. And that's what we think we can do, and we can stick to silver and silver focused opportunities that way. That's what we're trying to do, and we love the opportunity because very few other companies are doing it, and so that gives us a lot of open space to grow.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's also one of your real USPs, I would say. And honestly, also to have some waste product gold, it also does not hurt.
No, or cobalt or zinc or whatever. I mean,
exactly. Sorry. Yeah, exactly. But do you think you want to upgrade?
Yeah. Look, I think when we get into production, for sure. The TSX has different metrics that for companies to list, and we would already meet some of the metrics based on market cap and liquidity, but once we are in production, we'll meet all of the requirements, no problem. So I think sometime between now and production we would like to do that. I mean, it's definitely, as we expect to be a multi-$100 million dollar market cap company. And so we will need to list on other exchanges in order to grow from there.
Okay, super. Let's come back to your financing. 8 million Canadian dollars. Maybe you can top it up. I don't know. We will see by the end of next week, probably then. But let's assume everything goes the fine way. You get maybe $8-9 million. Is this enough to really bring Bethania in production and to really get the ball rolling?
Well, it depends. So we've sort of penciled in some debt or offtake financing into our plans, and that allows us to raise a lower amount of money now. I think if our share price was higher, and if we weren't dealing with the Peru situation with our in terms of our share price, we would have done things a bit differently. But I'm a big shareholder, as you guys know. So keeping a firm eye on dilution is a big factor for me.
Yeah, it's in your interest, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. So look, I think we've got a lot of interest. We've got a great product that is known to the market in terms of the concentrates from Bethania, because this was in production 5 years ago. So we're very confident that we can do something if we need to. So like, I guess in the strict sense, no, we're not fully financed, but we believe we have lots of options. And what we want to do right now is keep our options open. We want to keep exploring as well, so that we can keep, growing our resources, adding value, both at Bethania, with especially the new Carmelita project, which we'll want to spend some money on. and also in Canada too. So I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep lots of news going to the market for our investors with our two projects, and then keep quietly developing Bethania behind the scenes, and then we'll deal with the final financing, if you want to call it that, when the market or when the timing is right.
Okay, super. So that would mean also that you do not have long lead items. You have to order now to, let's say, set up the plant, set up the production. Those are all things which you can do in a quite narrow time frame. And given the fact that you maybe do some debt, some project finance, this should all happen in the next 4 to 5 months, right?
Yeah, I think in terms of the financing, yes. In terms of the long lead items, you're right. Because 350 tons per day is something where the equipment is available in Peru off the shelf. Mm-hmm. It's very similar to what a lot of other private small mining companies in Peru would be doing, or there's toll milling companies as well there. So that equipment is very readily available, and that means that we can do it. We can do that really quickly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, super. So 350 tons per day sounds not so much, but given the fact the grades you have, what do you think you can produce with that per year, silver equivalent, if you want to say that, like?
Right. So look, I think. Let me just run you through an exercise, a hypothetical exercise. So if we've got our historical head grade was 15 ounces per ton. That's pure silver. I think it would be closer to 20 ounces per ton on an equivalent basis. Mm-hmm. So let's just call it that. 350 tons per day, milling, normal kind of recoveries, expected recoveries. You're looking at about 2 million ounces of silver, or 2.5 million equivalent on an annualized basis. So that's basically what those numbers would get you. We're doing a PEA right now. We'll confirm that with a third party later this year. But the math is actually pretty easy to do. So anyone can do it.
Okay.
And that's just our starting point. I mean, we do want to expand Bethania again. There's no reason why we can't do that. Just my philosophy when we started the company back, 3-4 years ago was, let's get a small operation going first, so we can make money, and then we can always expand from there, because it's easier to expand than to build something from scratch.
Absolutely.
So that's really been the philosophy, and we're still sticking to that.
Okay, so let's assume you have the 350 tons per day. Things are running well. If I stay for a moment, let's say with 2 million ounces, and also I can calculate, because I know you cannot say that by now, it's a forward-looking statement and we do not have the PEA out, but let's assume for a second that you have a production cost maybe around $12 to $13. Yeah, even let's stay conservative, $15 with the silver price today, you would easily make a margin before taxes of, let's say, 10, maybe $13 to $14. So we are talking about 25 to 30 million profits before taxes. Yeah, so this is a beautiful amount for the first year, which would easily serve debt, would help you to repay. So to expand that, to add another 350 ton per day, for example, production, let's say, just to double that, yeah, how much money might be needed? As you said, you can buy it off the shelf.
Well, look, I mean, we think, it should be less than the first 350. I mean, we should get some synergies, but essentially we'd be doubling our circuit. So some of the equipment we'd just be doubling, but some of the infrastructure that we build, of course, for the first one, we can just keep using it, right? Like our camp, we won't be hiring too many more people for that. So our camp will still work. etc. And that's, that'll be like $1 million, or maybe 750 or something, but that's a major cost. Our tailings, we won't have to double that right away. We'll probably do that over time. So that will become a sustaining CapEx cost. So look, I think it would be well under $10 million to do that.
Yeah. So the note, why I'm asking the question is, for me, it looks like in the first year, you can easily, let's say, settle the whole company. And in the second year, you can already out of cash flow, let's say, double the production capacity. And then I think this is where it's getting really interesting. Also for us investors, as I'm a shareholder of your company too, and I'm a long-term shareholder, right? And I'm fully sticking with that. And so for me, this is like the cream on the pie, right?
Yeah.
Because then it's getting really big fun. And also I expect much higher silver prices within the next 2-3 years.
Yeah, look, I mean, you're right. I mean, if you look at, there's, companies out there that produce, less than 2 million ounces a year, 1.5 million ounces, and they're worth $700-800 million market cap because, the market expects them to expand production. They like their exploration. And I see no reason why we can't do that with Kuya and with the Bethania project.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, again, it's not like we're reinventing the wheel here. There are other companies out there like that, and we're just following in their footsteps. And I mean, there's a huge opportunity for our shareholders here. We're sitting at about an $80 or $90 million market cap. So if we can go, if we can grow our market cap like that without issuing too many more shares, it's a huge opportunity, multi-bagger opportunity for our shareholders. So that's what we're trying to do.
That's why I am one. The resource for the start, as you are doing now, the 43-101. If you have one wish for free, what would be the thing you say? Hey, this is something what we are looking for as a start resource that we can let's say present at least 5, 7, maybe 10 years mine life.
Well, I mean, I guess. I mean, we won't get that right away, but I mean. 10 years of mine life at 2 million ounces a year, silver would be 20 million ounces, obviously.
Yeah, but we have to deduct also recovery rates.
Yeah, but the recoveries are very high. So it's in ballpark. It would be roughly 20 million ounces. I think we could. I think we can easily get there with just by drilling the Bethania veins down dip, deeper and along strike. And whether we can get it to 30 or 40 million, well, that'll depend on, how much further we can extend the strike length, how deep things go, if we get any, bigger structures at depth where, we do get these where we have two veins intersecting, we do see higher grades and higher and bigger thicknesses, as you would expect. So, so these vein intersections will become a bigger maybe target for us as we go deeper in the exploration in the future. So, I think there's, the Bethania is a vein system. It's pretty big. It's more than 1 kilometer in length. We've proven that at surface with our mapping and sampling, and could be even much bigger than that. And we've got Carmelita as well that looks quite similar, although a bit earlier stage. So, there's a lot of room here for now for tens of millions of ounces to be found.
Super, perfect. Carmelita, that's also one of the points I would love to ask you. When you start with Carmelita, with exploration and things like that, is this all covered in your permit, or do you need to permit there again something?
We need to permit it separately. So what we'll be doing first is we'll be doing the surface work first, which we can do quickly. In fact, some of it we don't need permits for, depending on what we're doing. So what we'll do is you'll see us doing surface sampling of the veins that we've mapped. We've mapped at surface, and they're on the map in the press release. There may be more veins there when we take a closer look. I bet you I wouldn't be surprised if there are. That was the map that we put out in our press release was based on 1 day of visit when we visited to do our due diligence. Right. So So that surface work will give us an idea of what's there. They've been only mining at 2 levels, so it's very, very shallow. We'll then try and permit the safety side so we can go underground. That's more of basically a safety exercise. We can go underground, do sampling there underground in the veins that they mined out. And while we're doing all that will take a few months. We'll get the drill permits. So then once we've collected all that first level of information from the underground mine and from the surface, we'll be ready to drill. We'll know where our drill targets are. Because frankly, we're not ready to drill there yet anyway.
Of course. Good. Let's move shortly to Canada. As you mentioned, Kerr project and also Silver King. First Cobalt is a shareholder, just under 5%. Have they indicated to hold their position, or do you think they might sell off because they need the money maybe for their refinery they are building?
Yeah, I mean, I think at some point, yes, but I mean, I think they're looking for much higher prices on our stock. I mean, that's certainly what we sold them when we did the deal.
What we all want.
Right. So they're, in the sense, they're no different than you, Jochen. Yeah. So or me. So yeah, look, I mean, they've raised a lot of money themselves recently, so they don't need to sell their Kuya shares. They're in pretty good shape.
Okay, super. Then also with those properties, could we expect you then also in the future not only to look for silver but also for cobalt?
So basically, you get both. I mean, we're not looking for one or the other. We're looking for these high grade veins, and the primary product is going to be silver. If you look at the whole camp and what it's produced over the last 120 years, since the early 1900s when the original discoveries were made, it's mostly silver. But there is cobalt there. The cobalt grades can be very high. Usually when you get high cobalt, you also get the high silver as well. So what you end up producing, or what we expect to produce, would be a like metallic silver product, essentially, that you can recover with gravity. And then there will be a concentrate, and the concentrate will be cobalt and with some more silver in it, hopefully. And then once in a while, if you go back in the historical information, once in a while, these mines recovered nickel and copper as well. Obviously, the nickel and copper prices are pretty high, so you never know. I'm not going to say that I'm not going to say we will, but those minerals do occur in these veins as well, sometimes with the silver and the cobalt, but it's mainly those two metals. And so if we bring Kerr into production at some point in the future, we will be producing cobalt for sure, because it is the primary byproduct of the silver.
That would be also my question, if you like to bring that by yourself into production, because I could imagine that this is one, let's say, like, it looks to me like a joker for the next, 3 years, 4 years maybe. And that if you can produce such a concentrate, could this then be refined in First Cobalt's refinery?
Yeah, I mean, there's
that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and in fact, on the Silver Kings joint venture, they have a right of first refusal on our, when we get into production, or if we ever get into production there, that's on the grassroots property. But the reality is, when you've got a refinery so close by, the economics are strongly in their favor to be refining our concentrate.
Super, that's great. So could you imagine then that you might use positive cash flow out of Peru to transfer it to Canada to bring up that production? Or do you say, oh no, Canada is an entity by itself. It has to finance itself, and we make sure that Peru is growing and being well and generating cash and maybe dividends for our shareholders?
I think we just have to see how the timing works out. I think with the project in Canada, there would be at least a year of exploration, and then at least 1 year of permitting and engineering, and then at least probably 1 year of construction, right? So at least the underground mine development. Like, I don't know if we'll be able to use the underground workings that are there right now because they're quite old for anything. So, I think we have time to build up a big cash position from Peru, and then we can figure out where we allocate those dollars, right? And maybe, if the priority is growing in Peru, then we have money for that. I am optimistic that we'll have both. We'll be able to do it all. I mean, it will depend on the silver price, of course, and how we do with our production in Peru. If the silver price goes to $40 or $50, we'll have so much cash flow, or we should have so much cash flow, that we can build a small plant in Ontario for the Kerr project. We can expand Bethania. We can do other things. So we'll see.
Okay, super. All right. So let me check on here. Questions. Okay, this is all done. Yep, that is fine. Maybe last question from my side also. Can you give us a little bit more definitive timetable? Let's say, when do you think the resource comes out? When will we have the PEA? And when do you see really the mine production start?
All right. Well, just give me some flexibility on each one of these, but
I'll
tell you, I'll tell you where it's looking right now.
Yeah.
So we're going to finish, or we should get all of our assays back for Peru this month, June. And so once we have collected all that data, and our consultants are able to model that will go into the 43-101 resource calculation. So I would say that will be, we could have that as maybe by August. I think July is possible, but aggressive. Maybe by August, we'll see. But once we get the assay results, there's nothing more to do on that. Then it's just finish the report, finish the model, finish the report. And then the PEA will follow that. So the PEA, they'll need to wait for the final resource model so that they can then overlay their engineering work on that, and then we can finish the PEA. So one follows the other, and so the PEA will be maybe another month or so after that. In terms of production, I think Johan, you said Q2 next year. I think that's probably where we're leaning right now. We've definitely gotten some delays this quarter due to COVID and the political situation. We've run into a bit of a window where not a lot is getting done. And as I said earlier, I think probably this whole month of June and July as well, before the inauguration. I don't know if there are a lot of bureaucrats, and this is business as usual. We might get lucky, we might get stuff done, but I'm not holding my breath. So I think if I'm right about that, then I would say we'll be looking at Q2 next year.
Super. So we can say within the next 10 to 12 months you are in production.
We can say that.
Okay, love to hear that. Super. That's the great final sentence for our virtual roadshow here. I'm just looking also on my list. No, we have checked all the boxes. Fantastic. David, thank you very much for a great presentation and an update. And yeah, we really look forward to a lot of drill results then. And of course, for your resource statement, because I think this would be a big, big milestone for you guys, that you have proven really, hey, it is there. It's not only like that we have here 20 ounces and 15 ounces samples, but we are in it, right? And also keep fingers crossed for your financing next week to close everything, and hopefully you can maybe get a little bit more than the 8 million, because it's always nice to have some spare money in the bank, right? Yeah. Super. Okay. Fantastic. David, thank you very much. We talk soon, and I have a very good feeling that we also will do then quite soon an update interview, and latest when you have the resource out, we will see us here on the TV side. That's also for sure. Super. Okay, I wish you all the best. Thank you very much, and take care. And look forward to talk to you soon. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was our live virtual roadshow with Kuya Silva and David Stein, the CEO of the company. And you heard it, company is full on track, of course, a little bit delayed by COVID, as a lot of other companies also, and of course by the political situation with all the elections and inauguration going on in Peru. But as you heard, there's really nothing to, let's say, hard worry about. And I mean, also socialists need money and they have to do taxes. That is also for sure. But keep in mind, Peru is a 500-year mining company, and they know what they are doing because mining is their biggest contributor to GDP, to the economy, and to the economic growth. And yeah, things look really good that they get the Bethania Mine into production by Q2 next year. And they are also raising now $8 million in a board deal, which enables them, to really go fast track. And of course, they need some more money within a debt or project finance then, which I think is not really a problem, because we talk about something in the order of maybe 10, maybe 15 to 20 million. This is just my guess and not David's guess. I'm allowed to say that. And please. Super. David, also, thank you very much. All the best, and we talk soon.
You.
Take care.
Right,
bye-bye. Ciao. Bye.